This government does not.
Speaker.
I call the honourable member John Hayes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 26 years ago, that last Speaker's member was part of a government led by one R.D. Muldoon that took this country to the top of a financial cliff. And if we listen to what he said this afternoon in this House, he wants to take us back to the days of a command economy. We're going to run railways, we're going to put plastic on wires, and this is what we are going to do. Well, I'm really sorry, sir. Since you've come down from Auckland, you seem to have lost touch.
Order.
Since the member has travelled down to Wellington from Auckland, he seems to have lost touch with the fact that in this economy, the government sets the rules for everybody to operate equally under. The government is not meddling in the business community. It will not do that. Mr. Speaker, let's go back to 2008 when this party came to power, when the party led by John Key. At that point, New Zealand was struggling out of a recession because we discovered when we got into power that actually the recession had been going on for 2 years before that, but guess how it was camouflaged? Because the government that member's leader was a party to was busy employing more and more civil servants, using borrowed money to do it and camouflaging what they were up to. Or we didn't know it at the time, back in 2008, but we were soon to be hit by the devastating Christchurch earthquakes. Now, that member says, oh yes, but if it wasn't for the earthquakes, your economy wouldn't be moving forward. I've got to say to you, that's nonsense. Where does the $30 billion come from that's repairing the damage from those earthquakes? Substantially from taxes. This was unexpected, absolutely unexpected expenditure, Mr. Speaker. And while the global economic situation remains uncertain at best, and I make that judgment having been to Europe late last year and I can see what's going on there, here in New Zealand we're making really good progress. The economy is growing and we're on track to surplus by 2014-2015. Business confidence is improving and our companies are becoming more and more competitive. Come to Metalform in Danneberg. I've told you about them before. Exporting locally produced wheelchairs, selling in the States for $25,000 each. They're selling wind generator motors into Turkey and doing all sorts of interesting things. Wages are growing and inflation is low. Net household disposable income is around 20% higher than it was 4 years ago. Compared to mid-2009, over 60,000 Kiwis have got more jobs, although I agree the unemployment rate is too high. Interest rates are at 50-year lows, and I'm old enough to know that, and households are saving more. Mr. Speaker, $30 billion in Christchurch is well underway with the rebuild, and over the past 4 years, the government has embarked on a huge range of sensible economic and fiscal management options, like investment in infrastructure, like rebuilding the Rimataka Hill Road. We've identified the ingredients needed to attract the productive investment required to support jobs and higher incomes and help families get ahead. Your command economy, Mr. Williams, won't do that. And we have chosen a moderate but a persistent rate of change that has allowed us to take the community with us. Furthermore, this year the government is going to move to make significant change to the Resource Management Act, and it's going to introduce new housing policies, and it will implement a new framework for water management. Mr. Speaker, there's been criticism of the government in the House this afternoon. What I can say is it has come from people who were not at the Central District's field days, because if they'd been there, they would have found amazing resilience amongst the farming communities, despite the drought. And you talk to any of the businesses that were selling there, they came away, by and large, with record sales. Mr. Speaker, the drought is going to have an impact on my electorate. It's probably going to knock incomes by about 20%. About 60 million of that will be the Tararua district. About 60 million of it will be north in Central Hawke's Bay, and about 60 million of it will be in the south around Masterton. I know that the New Zealand First Party has no support or contacts there, so I'm bringing this to the House for your information, so you know a little bit about some other parts of New Zealand than Auckland. Mr. Speaker, I'm really impressed by the resilience of buildings in businesses in my electorate. I was in Oringi. You remember the freezing works closed. There are now more people employed in the Oringi works, in the old Oringi works, than there were under the days of the freezing works. More people employed because they've set up a whole lot of businesses there. Look at Fonterra. They're about to expand their operation in Paeatua, creating 300 new jobs. Mr. Speaker, there are brilliant things happening in my electorate. Forestry. Yesterday, on Monday night, I was driving down here from Dannevirke, and what do you pass? Right. A huge train carrying logs from my electorate through to Napier. These things, getting our logs onto rails and off roads is a very good thing. Yes, it would make a lot of sense to have more forest produce being manufactured in my area, but we're up against the Greater Wellington Regional Council, who is busy trying to sell off forest rights because they're broke and they've got more. When they took the forest, they had a $15 million debt. Now they've got $16 million. Absolutely terrible outcome from a facility that was given to them without any debt at all. We need to keep those assets in our communities. We need to attract foreign investment to grow jobs. And it's important to point out that the labour market is very dynamic. Every year in New Zealand, there are around 250 jobs created and 250,000 lost. And there are a number of indicators as to what's currently happening in the New Zealand labour market. All the surveys point to job growth. Mr. Speaker, this is a very good budget. I congratulate the Minister of Finance and John Key on leading us through these very difficult economic circumstances very sensibly and very stably into new, calmer water. And, Mr. Speaker, I can tell you we are doing better than any country in Europe as we go forward with this economy, and we're doing better than Japan, and we're doing the US better than the US, and I'm just disappointed that the member from New Zealand First doesn't have the intellectual capacity to understand how well this economy is growing. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker.
I call the Honourable Shane